All right. Okay. So we are on chapter 30 in Sri Sharda Devi and her divine play. And we were looking last week. One of the nice things last week was that she said to one of her devotees, she said, "My children will not be born again. You too will not be born. This birth is your last birth." Tears of gratitude trickled from Chandra's eyes, and Charadananda heard the mother's blessing to Chandra and joyfully told him, "Well, so you managed to attain your end." And just what a what an amazing reassurance that is. But here we are. We are all mother's children. We can't deny that. And so she said, "My children will not be born again." And she passed that on to him as he was being initiated that day. So this is your assurance. It's a huge assurance, uh, and I think that it's these kinds of assurances that are what allow us to let go of the stuff that disturbs the mind when we think about our spiritual condition, or when we think about ourself in relation to our ideal, and it makes us feel so far away and gives a sense of discouragement and a sense of like, well, yeah, sometime that'll happen. And I think that sometimes dampens our efforts, because it somehow seems. I remember telling Swami Prabhupada, shortly after one of our other monks had left at the monastery, I was sitting there talking to him at lunch, and I told him, I said, "Maharaj," I said, "I should just leave the monastery now." And he looked at me quite shocked, and went, "Ram, Ram, 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 Ram," like he would do when something terrible was said. And he said, "Ram, Ram, 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 Ram. Why would you say such a thing, Santosha?" And I said to him, I said, "Well, Maharaj, look at the number of brothers that have left since I've been here. That we'd had like 8 different young men join and leave uh, in succession there at that point. And I was just like, God, what am I not getting? why, why haven't I ducked out with them? And I told him, I said, just statistically, I said, it's just pure hubris, pure arrogance for me to think that I should stay and that somehow I'm going to be the one to, you know, to navigate this successfully when so many are leaving. And he looked at me and he said, "Oh, see, these things are not a matter of statistics." He said, "Things here are a matter of grace. Do not worry. You go forward, on your path." And so this beautiful grace that we have in all of the traditions. I mean, Christianity is laden with these promises, and all the different yogas are laden with these promises as well. And then, Islam, all of the world's great traditions, Buddhism, they're they're just rich in this sense of grace, in this sense of care, that all is well, just keep going. It's like, don't you trouble yourself with your condition, because your condition is not your trouble. It is your divine mother's trouble. She's the one that has taken responsibility for you. And she's the one that said that she's going to change your diaper. So don't you worry too much about where you're at or what your condition is at this moment. And it's because of that, that we're able to settle our minds, that we're able to, do the neti neti, kind of do the surrender, to let go and just trust. And because we're always talking about that faith, that it's always a matter of faith. Faith is at the root of everything, Ramakrishna says. And faith is sort of a nebulous word, but really what he's meaning by that faith is twofold. One, believe the things that you know that you shouldn't know, right? And those are an interesting list of things like immortality. There's these things that I thought about one time in a meditation, just just another one of my thought experiments. I was trying to think, is what do I know that I really shouldn't know? Because there's nothing in this world that could have taught me that. And one of them is the thought of immortality. There is nothing in this material world that would have given me the idea of immortality. And so I thought, well, why am I so comfortable with it? Why does that seem like it's like such a normal thought to me? And I thought, well, gosh, I wonder, there must be some information that we brought in with us from the perfect state, from the unified state. And so one of them, I think, is the thought of immortality. I think another one is the thought of an unconditioned love. There's nothing that's not transactional in the physical universe, and yet we have a very strong ideal of this non-transactional love, this love that has no condition to it. And I think that comes in with us through our nature. And so faith would involve that. And so it's not that faith is believing something that has no purpose. It's believing the things that we somehow know that we shouldn't know, and that can't be proved in this world because we can't learn them from this world. And if we were purely a relational computer that was just taking input from the senses, we would not have run into anything that would have indicated these things to us. And so this idea of any of our ideals, any sense of perfection is not visible in this material world. Everything has a rounded edge or a torn corner or something about it. And yet we're very comfortable with ideals. We're always talking about striving for this ideal or that perfection. And so I think that's another one of these things that we have to basically uh, accept them, right? And part of, because they are what alleviate our delusion, alleviate our concern, that allow us to kind of relax in the company of these enormous ideals, these beautiful ideals, this idea of God and life and whatnot. And so it's these promises like this that are made by all of the sages, which I think is another important point. That all of the great incarnations, the great avatars, uh, that's redundant. We can just say avatars. Just being an avatar, you're pretty great no matter what. So, but these avatars always offer us this grace and offer us this assurance that love is enough, that the divine nature is enough, and that we are being taken care of. That, as Ramakrishna says in that funny way, the cobra's already bitten you. There's no hope for you now. You will realize God no matter what. Kicking or screaming, you're going home. And so this is our faith, and this is how we find our ability to chill in the presence of the divine and absorb that purity, that sweetness, accept that love, and through that acceptance of that love, we become filled. We become filled with that love. And when we get filled with that love, that's when we start dripping it everywhere, dropping it everywhere we go, just overflowing with that heart. And that's what seeking God does to a person, turns them into that Raskola of divine love. Okay, so the divinity of Holy Mother, chapter 30. Devim prasanam pranatari hantrim yogindra pujyam yoga dharma patrim tam sharadam bhakti vijnana datrim daya swarupam pranamami nityam, a hymn by Swami Abhedananda, which translates to, that was very daring of me to do that, I have to say. I always salute Sharada Devi, the gracious goddess who removes the sufferings of those who bow down to her, who is worshipped by the masters of yoga, who is the very personification of spirituality for this age, who is the giver of devotion and wisdom, and who is the very embodiment of compassion. According to the Hindu scriptures, when God incarnates as an avatar, his Shakti, his divine feminine, or that active, the power part, also incarnates with him as his spiritual consort. right? And so that's the Vedanta ideal is that anytime God has come, there's always male and female. Yeah, and you just look around and find out where they are. You know, they'll either be husband and wife, or they'll be, friends, or they'll be lovers, or they'll be mother and son. But there'll always be, you can't have one without the other. That's the thing, is that for God to be incarnated, both of those energies. Now we've made a metaphor of gender, or of um, sex, as part of, as the determination, of Shakti as feminine and the absolute is male. But really, it's just those two components: the pure potential of that's in being, that is usually determined to be the Father or God, the absolute unchanging. And then you have Shakti, which is the manifestation of that God, the God that we know, the God that teaches, the God that has attributes. And that God manifests as an avatar whenever the world is falling into uh, a darkness. Whenever darkness is beginning to prevail, the Bhagavad Gita says that God comes and to infuse us with light, to bring back balance. So whenever there is, and that's the next very, very next verse. Krishna said in the Gita, whenever there is a decline of dharma, or righteousness, or right living, and a rise of adharma, unrighteousness, I incarnate myself. In the Chandi, the Divine Mother said, whenever the demonical powers try to disrupt or destroy this world, I shall incarnate and destroy those enemies of divine beings. Oh, so there's a little bit of reassurance that God swoops in and saves the day. Some religions believe only in the fatherhood of God, but Hinduism asserts both the fatherhood and motherhood of God. Brahman is conscious and devoid of form, so it can manifest as male or female. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it is said that the creator was not happy because he was alone. He desired a mate. So he became the size of a man and a wife in close embrace. He divided his body into two. From that division arose husband and wife. This concept is symbolized by the Hindu deity Ardhanarishwara, one half of whose body is female and the other half male. And, it's interesting. We've talked about this before, but just to remind you of the experiment, if you take that meditating picture of Ramakrishna that's on all the shrines, basically, if you take that picture and you cut it in half in Photoshop, and you mirror the left and right sides, so you have one photo that's two right sides mirrored next to each other, and the other photo is two left sides mirrored next to each other, you clearly see that one picture is male and one picture is female. Now, I'm not saying that there's actually an evidence there of something or anything, but Greg and I did that in the monastery when I was a brahmachari way back in 2001 or something. And when we did it and looked at the pictures, we both looked at each other incredulously, like, wow, look at that. That's amazing. Thakur very clearly in his body is emanating this idea of male and female. And so this deity here that he's talking about is that carries that Ardhana Rishwara, half male, half female. More, which is something I really appreciate, especially in this day and age. This transgender. I say issue when it's not an issue, but it's being made an issue of in this day and age, is so unnecessary. Because in the light of the fact that our divine nature is neither male nor female, that it's developed through our identity with body and our identity with mind. In my estimation of things, which is unimportant, but as I have thought about it, I really think that this transgender, when a person can feel or have a sense, I'm not the gender of my body, I'm not the sex of my body. I think there's a difference between sex and gender. I think gender is the mind's concept or construct of male or female. but the physical is manifestation and is generally male or female. But even in that, there's many animals that have both male and female inherent in them. We've got seahorses that can choose, where the male seahorse can decide to get pregnant and then carry the babies, um, or not. In fact, kind of a fascinating world. And people who are born, ambiguous with both sets of genitalia. But this notion, I think, that it's actually an indication of spiritual insight to have a sense of not being your body, whether it's the sex of the body or not, or whatnot. I think it's an indication that actually you could use in a very strong spiritual way to propel yourself forward. I think the only turn that I would suggest is, instead of saying I'm not the gender that this body is, I'm the other gender, instead of connecting to either of those genders, use that launch pad to help you understand I'm both or neither, however you want to approach it, and that I'm spirit, and use that to free yourself from all the bondage that sexuality causes us in the body. How it really pulls us in, to the extent that if you aren't careful with your sexuality and your expression of it in the world, and you just kind of give rein to your desires, what happens is the heart gets hard, and the heart starts looking at people as pleasure objects. You start judging people for all different manners of things. Somebody isn't beautiful or ugly until you're thinking about them in that physical way. People, rich and poor, comes into play, when you think of somebody as an object of lust. Fat and skinny come into play. All of that stuff, all of these judgments that we make about each other, really have lust at the root of them. And that's why Ramakrishna says that all of this variety of play that manifests in the universe, that the seed of it is lust and greed, that it's because of lust and greed that we differentiate all of this, based on those attachments to body mind, that we make all these judgments and all these distinctions and all these separations. And at the end of the day, so many of the world's scriptures are very concerned about the way we manage our sexuality. One, I think, because it's one of the most powerful forces in our bodies. But I think, secondly, if they're misused, it can be terribly detrimental to your inner peace. And so I think that, that is why it's so important in the scripture. And I myself have seen the difference because, either fortunately or unfortunately, I think I've seen both sides of that coin, and have seen very clearly the different mind that both of them produce. And I took this extreme of joining a monastery, and it's been very difficult. It's been delightful, but it's I don't know. I don't want to make a big thing out of it, but doggone it, it's been the hardest thing I've ever attempted to do in my life. It's really led me it's taught me to laugh, is what it has done. It's taught me to laugh at everything, to just keep going, laugh it off and keep going. Just keep going. don't get hung up on anything. Don't get hung up on anything. All of it is couched in grace, and the ultimate answer is love. And just the longer you keep pushing, the longer you just keep trying to see how can all of this be what it seems to be, that love becomes the light that takes you forward, and the whats and whatnots become rather unimportant in time. And it's just that presence that begins to really just to teach you how nothing can disturb you, to show you that there is no limit to your ability to be at peace, to be free, to love, to have compassion, to serve. All right, so this concept is symbolized by that Hindu deity Ardhanarishwara, one half of whose body is female and the other half male. Moreover, this deity has become manifest as Rama and Sita, Krishna and Radha, Buddha and Yashodhara, Chaitanya and Vishnupriya, and Ramakrishna and Sharada, and some would posit Jesus and Mary in that list. All divine beings who have taken human form. Holy Mother was a Devi, a goddess, but she took on a human form to fulfill her divine mission. Her birth, her conduct, and actions were divine, but she concealed her divinity. Ramakrishna once humorously said that she was like a cat covered with ashes. Although she was surrounded by her family, monks, and devotees, and behaved like an ordinary woman, she could not hide her divinity completely. From time to time, she revealed her true nature to some of her close disciples and devotees. And this next section is called Holy Mother Reveals Herself. I love these stories, these accounts, not just stories, but these accounts of people's experiences with Mother. One way to recognize divine beings is when they speak about themselves. Otherwise, it is not possible for ordinary human beings to comprehend the infinite Lord. Why? Because we project, there's no way for us to know anyone outside of ourselves. You know, I cannot get access to your mind under normal circumstances, and so I can't really ever really know what your experience of being is inside. What I do is I hear what you're saying, and I project from my experience of being onto yours, and through that understand who you are, or gather an idea of who you are, and think that I understand you. But this is why relationships are so difficult, you know, because we can use the same words to say something to each other and mean radically different things by those words, because we can't give the meaning of the words to each other. We can only use the word itself, and we have to let go of it. And the other person takes that sound and projects everything that they think it means onto that word. And so that's what makes relationships quite difficult to work out, and why there's so much unintended misunderstanding and anger and distrust. Really, distrust is probably the most damaging thing that comes out of that. And so, you know, I think that that's why the greats avatars, silence is one of their main means of teaching, because I think that there's something transferable that's spiritual. It can't be put into words, because words require all of the things that keep us deluded. You know, words require time because they have to fall in sequence, and words have to have causation because you need verbs of doership in there, you know. And words, you know, of course, also need that space, need that place for manifestation. So you have to have time, space, and causation to understand a sentence. And time, space, and causation are created by, or are projected by, mind. They're tools of the mind for understanding the unity, or for taking the unity apart to study, I guess. So one way to recognize divine beings is by how they speak of themselves. Otherwise, it is not possible for ordinary human beings to comprehend the infinite Lord. In the 10th chapter of the Gita, before Krishna reveals his divine manifestations, Arjuna says to him, oh, you still there? Someone called again. Arjuna says to him, you are the supreme Brahman, the supreme abode, the supreme purifier, the eternal divine being, the primal God, unborn and omnipresent. So say all the sages, including the divine sages Narada, Asita, Devala, Vyasa. You also say unto me. Other avatars or divine incarnations also declared their divinity to their disciples. Krishna said, fools disregard me when I assume a human form, for they are unaware of my higher nature as the supreme Lord of all beings. At many points in this book, I have related important incidents pertaining to Holy Mother's divinity. Chapter 2 narrates the divine circumstances surrounding Holy Mother's conception. Chapter 3 describes the period in Kamarpukur after her wedding, when 8-year-old girls, the 8 confidants of the Divine Mother, accompanied her. Chapter 5 describes in detail Holy Mother's encounter with the robber in the meadow of Telobhelo, and how the robber and his wife saw Mother Kali in her. Chapter 11 tells how Holy Mother took her terrible form of Bagala to subdue crazy Harish who was threatening her. Ramakrishna was fully aware of Holy Mother's divinity. When he spoke about her to his disciples, he said, "She is Saraswati, the goddess of learning. She has assumed a human body to impart wisdom to human beings, but she has hidden her celestial beauty, lest people, by looking at her, should befoul their minds with sinful thinking." When Hriday was jealous of Holy Mother and treated her rudely, the master cautioned him, saying, "Look here, you may insult me, but don't hurt her feelings. If he who dwells in this, meaning himself, hisses, you may somehow get by. But if he who dwells in her hisses, no one, not even Brahma, Vishnu, or Shiva, will be able to protect you." that's that's an intensity right there. That's the power of the divine feminine. And you see in a humorous way, you can see it's also in the world, Ramakrishna makes fun of men at some point. He says, see, some man will be wonderfully independent and heroic, and then he gets married, and his wife comes in the room and tells him when to sit down and tells him when to stand up and tells him when to, and he doesn't dare to disobey. In that sense, of course, that's all in fun, but that, this ideal, the divine feminine, there's a lot of power in it. Often we think of the divine feminine as being the sweet and the flowers and the frill and the whatnot. That's our own projection. Mother was a warrior. That's why she's standing on Shiva's chest. That's why Kali is depicted with that head of that garland of skulls, because she's the one that slays your demons. It's we talk about it in a nice childlike way when we talk about our dirty diapers, right? But in reality, it's these inner demons, these demons of lust and greed and anger and jealousy and hatred and all those things that tend to come into power within us, because we get deluded and start following those ideals. And it's the Divine Mother that comes and takes their head off, right? As she protects you, her child, and she just takes those heads of your demons that she's conquered for you and places them on her necklace, around herself. So the divine feminine is not something to be trifled with. It's not a weakness. It's not the weaker sex, as we some people like to talk about, femininity, which is not the case. It's a very powerful source, and Ramakrishna places it above himself, as an incarnation. He says, you can anger me, and you'll probably be all right. But if you anger the divine feminine, the divine mother, no one but her can save you. And he says also, and actually the scriptures say it in several places, that Shakti is the one that unties your bonds. It's the divine feminine that actually gives you your release, your freedom from the bondage of delusion. In 1910, Surendranath Sarkar went to Kotar in Orissa to receive an initiation from Holy Mother. After the ceremony, he said to her, "Mother, the devotees call you Kali. They call you Adyashakti and Bhagavati. It is mentioned in the Gita that the sages Asita, Devala, Vyasa, and others considered Krishna to be Narayana himself. Krishna himself confirmed this to Arjuna. The word himself strengthened a statement. I believe whatever I have heard about you. Yet if you substantiate those statements about yourself, then I will be free from doubt. I want to hear from you directly whether or not this is true." The Holy Mother replied, "Yes, it is true." On the 4th of September 1918, the mother told Sharajubala Sen, "People call me Bhagavati, the goddess. I think that it must be so. So many incredible things have happened in my life. Golap and Yogan are witnesses of those events. If I think, let this happen, or I shall eat this, immediately God makes those things possible. See, it's interesting how she talks about it almost in third person, like she's saying, they say that I'm this, and I think it must be true. Why is that? Why wouldn't she say, yes, oh, yes, I am colleague, or yes, I am these things? Because that would betray an attachment. You see, our nature is we don't have a particular perspective in our true nature. We are everything. We are a unity in perfect harmony. There is no particular perspective or point of reference for us. We are all knowing, so we have all points of perspective. Uh, you know, One of the things that occurred to me that kind of described this to me actually is harder to share than I than it seems like it's going to be. But in a dream, when you dream at night, as we've talked ad infinitum about, when you dream, everything in that dream is projected by you, right? So the mountains in that dream, they're made out of your mind. The oceans in that dream, out of your mind. The fires and suns in that dream, out of your mind. All of these things are created from you. And yet, when you enter into the dream, where everything is you, you enter into it by taking a singular perspective or point of reference. You become a character in that dream. And you identify with that character, even though there's nothing special about that character. That character is equally you as much as the mountains, suns, oceans, flowers, plants, and other beings in your dream. They are all composed 100% by you, from you. And yet, when you enter into that dream, you take one perspective. When you take one perspective in the dream, you get a narrative because you don't know all of the other perspectives in that dream. You don't know what's happening and what the deal is. But if you were to enter into that dream with 10 million perspectives, enter into the dream and take the perspective of the light socket on the wall, take the perspective of the toaster in the kitchen, take the perspective of the dog, take the perspective of the fish, take the perspective of everything in that dream as it really is. It is all you. And so, if you were to enter into that dream and to place your sense of awareness, your point of awareness in everything in that dream, there would be no narrative because there would be no mystery. There would be nothing beyond experience, right? There would be no hidden thing to be revealed. And so, this is how we arrive at that non-doership, that one without a second, the perfect unison of the reality before it gets broken up by the senses and chewed up by the mind. Did that make any sense to anybody? That's what, because the thing that threw me into that thinking was Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj when he made that startling statement. For me at the time, it was startling when he said, your identity with your body is not the problem. And I read that and I was like, what? Everything has told me that's the problem. And then he clarifies. He says, your problem is that you only identify with one body. And you think that nobody else, no other body is yours. And he said, when reality, you are that which is animating everybody. That when you go before mind to Satchitananda, that Satchitananda it shines through the prism of a mind and comes out as your particular personality. But that's all that's different, is the manifestation on this side after it goes through the prism. When it's back here, before it goes through the prism of body mind in you, it's Satchitananda, it's white light. It hasn't been broken into the color spectrum, as it were. And so we are all one in that sense. If all of us turned around metaphorically within ourself and looked at the source of light that was shining through the prism of our particular mind and body to come out the front as a character with our name on it, we would see that it's the same light that is shining through all of us. And that light is identified with all bodies and all minds and knows itself as it is, right? And we identify ourselves with what comes out the front, right? We look in the mirror, that's me. We see the prismed Satchitananda, and we see billions of them, and we see them all as separate because we're identified with the front. We're not identified with the light behind us. And so this is why we have to go inside for our practice, why we have to go into silence so that we can break this illusion that we are the light coming out of the prism rather than the light that goes into the prism. See? In 1919, one evening in Jairambati, Brahmachari Bharata read some letters from the devotees to the mother. One woman devotee wrote a letter glorifying Holy Mother with various hymns. After listening to the letter, the Holy Mother remarked, "Look, sometimes I wonder. I am Ram Mukhopadhyaya's daughter, and many women of my age live in Jairambati. How am I different from them? Devotees from various places come down and bow down to me. On asking them, I learn that some are judges and some are lawyers. Why do they come here?" She remained silent for a while. Then Bharata asked, "Well, Mother, don't you remember your real nature at all times?" Holy Mother replied, "How can it be possible, my son? If it were so, how could I perform all of these activities? But you see, in the midst of all these activities, whenever I wish, inspiration comes in a flash. Then I understand the whole play of Mahamaya." And so for Mother, her delusion was a choice. It was a sacrifice, right? In the sense, that's why we talk about these avatars in terms of sacrifice, because they gave up that freedom, they gave up that knowledge, they gave up that knowing of that one without a second, in order to enter into this play, and to give comfort to to itself, rather, to itself, manifested in all other beings and all other things. And so it's compassion again that drives this play forward. Devotees from various places come and bow down to me. On asking them, I learn that some are judges and lawyers, and I wonder, why do they come here? Right? Holy Mother replied to the question, "How can it be possible, my son? If it were so, how could I perform all these activities? But you see, in the midst of all these activities, whenever I wish, inspiration comes in a flash, and I understand the whole play of Mahamaya." Lavanya Chakrabarti recorded in his reminiscences, in 1912, at Lakshmi Nivas in Varanasi, I met a woman with a veil near the main door. Looking at her face, I asked, "Are you the mother?" "Yes, my son, I am your mother." "My mother?" "Yes, I am the mother of you all." "Our mother?" "Yes, my son, I am the mother of the universe." A devotee asked, "Mother, people call you Bhagavati." Holy Mother replied, "It does not matter what others say. I tell you myself, I am Bhagavati." One day, Holy Mother referred to Ramakrishna as Bhagavan, God himself. A disciple asked her, "If the master is Bhagavan, God, then what are you?" "Who else am I?" the mother replied without any hesitation. "I am Bhagavati, the divine mother of the universe." Someone asked, "Well, Mother, your relations have such close association with you. Why do they not gain any spiritual wisdom?" Holy Mother replied, "They are like bamboo and silk cotton trees. They may grow near a sandalwood tree, but they do not get its essence." A woman devotee asked her, "Why can't we perceive you as the Divine Mother?" Holy Mother replied, "Can everybody recognize divinity? There lay a big diamond at a bathing place. People thought it was an ordinary stone and rubbed the soles of their feet on it after finishing their baths in order to remove their dry skin. One day a jeweler went there and saw this precious stone and realized that it was a valuable diamond." On the 1st of February 1907, Swami Arupananda interviewed Holy Mother in Jairambati. Arupananda: "Mother, people say that our Master is God eternal and absolute. What do you say about it?" Mother: "Yes, he is God eternal and absolute to me." Arupananda: "It is true that to every woman her husband is God eternal and absolute. I have not asked the question in that sense." Mother, yes, he is God eternal and absolute to me as my husband, and in a general way as well. Arupananda thought that if Ramakrishna was God absolute, then Holy Mother must be the mother of the universe. She must be the same as the divine consort, like Sita and Rama, Radha and Krishna. So he asked her, if that is so, then why do I see you preparing chapatis like an ordinary woman? It is Maya, I presume. Is that so? Mother, it is Maya indeed. Why otherwise should I be in this state? I could be in Vaikuntha sitting next to Narayana as Lakshmi. Then she continued, you see, God loves to sport as a human being. Krishna was born as a cowherd boy and Rama as the son of Dasharatha. Arupananda, do you remember your real nature? Mother, yes, now and then I do. At those times I say to myself, what is this that I'm doing? Then I look at the house, the children, the other family members, gesturing towards them with her palm, and I forget my real self. She gets pulled out of her own self. And it's love that does that, and that's it's love that causes that compassion, causes that expansion of heart. And then you go out to help the other person, forgetting that that other person is you. But it's that oneness that drew you toward them, that recognition there that draws you toward that becomes the impetus of compassion, becomes the impetus of love. Hmm. Holy Mother was so humble and so self-effacing that she could not bear it if someone praised her. Arupananda reminisced. One morning I was reading aloud to the mother and to several devotees on the porch of her room at Jairambati. I was reading a life of Sri Ramakrishna entitled Ramakrishna Punti, written in verse. In the chapter on her marriage with Sri Ramakrishna, the author eulogized her greatly and referred to her as the mother of the universe. As I read that passage, the mother left the porch. Vaikuntha, a disciple of Holy Mother from Cuttack, visited her at Karmarpakor. Ramlal and Lakshmi were also there. Before he left, Vaikuntha bowed down to Raghuvir in the shrine and then to Holy Mother. Suddenly she said, Vaikuntha, call on me. The next moment she controlled her feelings and said, I mean, call on the Master. That will serve your purpose. Lakshmi heard the mother's remarks and said, Mother, what do you mean? This is not fair. What will the devotees do if you hoodwink them in this way? Why, what have I done? Holy Mother asked. Lakshmi replied, a minute ago you said to the devotee, call on me. Now you say, call on the Master. Holy Mother responded, if a person calls on the Master, is there anything more for him to do? Lakshmi said, Mother, it is not proper to delude your children. Then Lakshmi said to Vaikuntha, look, today I have heard something new from the mother. Call on me. Never forget her words. Is the master different from the mother? You call on the mother. You are very fortunate that the mother herself has said this to you. You pray only to the mother. Then turning to Holy Mother, Lakshmi asked, Mother, did I say right? Mother then tacitly approved. Sarala, later Bharati Prana, recalled, one day at Jairambati, vexed with her relatives, the Holy Mother said to them angrily, do not torture me too much. If he who dwells in this body hisses but once, not even Brahma, Vishnu, or Shiva will be able to save you. On another occasion, she said to me, referring to Radhu's torment of her, look here, child, this body is divine. How much more torture can it bear? Can a human being, unless he be God, put up with all of this? Let me tell you something. No one will understand me as long as I am alive. They will only know afterward. It is by God's grace alone. not by self-effort, that human beings can have the vision of God. Very important. This year, I've been collecting these ideas about our practice, because I just think that in my life, I know that I just feel like I approached my spiritual practice completely wrong all the time, because I was always doing it with the idea of becoming something, of attaining something or achieving something. It was always in a transactional sort of way. And, even though the scriptures tell us again and again, you're not the doer, I never even imagined that that would apply to spiritual practice as well. And, I guess it was probably about a year and a half ago where that really hit me. And that has made so much of a difference. I mean, so much of a difference, actually, in spiritual practice. I always sit down now and I remind myself, you're not the doer. You are simply making yourself available to the beloved, to the divine. And in being available, you get filled with that presence, with that love. And so you sit in that presence and you are changed. And that's how the work happens. You know, you're changed because of the presence, because of yourself being available to the presence, because of your surrender, your undoing, that we seem to move forward, but really we only are becoming ourself. All right, Alex, good to see you. So it is by God's grace alone, not by self-effort, that human beings can have the vision of God. In the Gita, Krishna told Arjuna, "You cannot see me with these eyes, so I give you a divine eye." Then only could Arjuna behold Krishna's cosmic form. In 1965, at Trishur Pravrajaka Dhiraprana asked Pravrajaka Bharati Prana about her experiences with Holy Mother. Bharati Prana remained silent for some time and then said this: "I knew and felt Holy Mother to be my very own mother. I was not aware of her divinity. One day the Mother showered her grace on me and revealed a glimpse of her real nature. She was drying her hair on the roof of the old Bodon house. I went there to do some work, and she asked me to bring some flowers. When I brought them, the Mother indicated that I should offer those flowers at her feet. While doing so, I saw that the Mother's body became vast. I was bewildered and did not trust my eyes. Overwhelmed by that divine sight, I offered those flowers at her feet and prostrated fully. After a while, the Mother assumed her normal form. Only then did I realize that the Mother of the universe manifested herself in Holy Mother." Nilima Mukhopadhyaya recorded another story of Holy Mother's divinity that she had heard from Bharati Prana. Nilima asked, "What did you think about Holy Mother?" Bharati Prana replied, "I did not experience anything in particular. I lived with her as a child would, with its mother. Her love was fathomless. But yes, one day I was taken aback. On that day, unexpectedly, many devotees came to the Mother's house for prasad, and we became anxious about how to feed such a crowd. I hurriedly went to the Mother and informed her of the situation. She got up and said encouragingly, 'Everything will be all right. Let us go to the kitchen and see.' The Mother entered the kitchen and saw the food. She then took a spatula and stirred each container. Amazingly, all the devotees were satisfied with that food. Then it suddenly dawned on me, well, is Holy Mother then Goddess Annapurna herself? One day in Jairamati, Swami Tanmayananda worshipped the Holy Mother's feet as she was his guru. Then he put her feet on his head, and she said, 'My foolish child, one should not put another's foot on the head because the Master dwells there.' 'Mother, I have not seen the Master,' Tanmayananda replied. 'The Master is God himself.' 'If the Master is God, then who are you?' Well, who else am I? If you wish, you can show me the master. When the master touched Naren, Vivekananda, he was so scared that he cried out, "Practice spiritual discipline and you will see him." What is the need of spiritual discipline for a person who has a guru like you? The mother explained, Well, yes, that's true. But you see, one might have all kinds of food at home, yet one must cook it to eat this food. He who cooks earlier gets food earlier too. Some eat in the morning and some in the evening, and yet some starve because they are too lazy or afraid to cook. Swami Maheshwarananda recalled, Once at Koalpara ashrama, a distinguished devotee, Narayanan Iyengar, came to bow down to the Holy Mother. He had learned that the mother got a burning sensation if someone touched her feet. So he said, if we touch the mother's feet and that causes pain to her, then we should not do it. The mother replied, No, my son, we have come only for that purpose. If we do not absorb and digest others' sins and sufferings, who else will? Who else will bear the burden of the sinners and sufferers? It is good souls. If good souls touch my feet, I don't feel pain. But when some people touch my feet, I get a burning sensation. Of course, my son, you may touch my feet when you bow down. The Holy Mother was the embodiment of purity, and she had the power to purify others. One night in Jairambati, her cook said that she had not touched a dog and needed to bathe. One night in Jairambati, her cook said that she had touched a dog and needed to bathe. It's got a footnote. In India, some dogs are strays and are not clean, so Orthodox Hindus bathe if they touch them. Holy Mother said, It is rather late in the evening. Don't bathe now. Wash your hands and feet and change your sari. The cook objected. Oh, that won't do. The Holy Mother responded, Then sprinkle some Ganges water on your body. But even that did not satisfy the cook's fastidious nature. Finally, the mother said, Then touch me. Boy, that would run shivers down my back. That's beautiful. Then touch me. One day in the Udbodhan house, a woman disciple named Sailabala Chadhuri said to the mother, You are Mahamaya. You have deluded us and made us involved with our father, our mother, our husbands, our children. Immediately the mother replied, Don't say that I have kept people deluded. I feel terrible pain when I see the sufferings of worldly people. What can I do, my child? They don't want liberation. Another day, Sailabala asked the mother, You have instructed me in how to repeat the master's mantra, but how should I think of you? She replied, You may think of me as Radha, or in any other way that appeals to your mind. It will be enough if you think of me even as your mother. Although Holy Mother's divinity could manifest itself spontaneously, she could also withdraw it quickly. Although she tried to hide her divinity, her devotees now and then realized her real nature. Swami Ritananda reminisced, One day in Jairambati, when the mother was sweeping the veranda of her old cottage with a broom, a beggar loudly called from outside, Mother, please give me some alms. The mother soliloquized, I can't do any more. I can't finish my work with innumerable arms. Saying so, she stopped and put one hand on her knee. I was seated nearby and eating puffed rice. She looked at me and said with a smile, Look, I have only 2 arms, and I say that I have innumerable arms. Smiling, the mother continued her sweeping. Once, not long after Ram Prasad's death, Holy Mother was traveling to Jairambati from Kamarpukur. Shivaram, and the master's nephew, was then a young boy. He was traveling with the mother and carrying her bundle. As they neared Jairambati, Shivaram thought of something and stopped. The mother was surprised and asked him to keep up. Shivaram replied, I shall move only if you tell me something. What? Will you tell me who you are? Who else am I? I'm your aunt. Then you can go by yourself. You are near your home. I won't go with you. Don't be silly. Who do you think I am? I am a human being, your aunt. Very good. Then why don't you go by yourself? The sun was about to set, and seeing Shivaram standing still in the meadow, Holy Mother said, People say I'm Kali. Well, are you really Kali? Is it true? Yes, Holy Mother replied. Shivaram was pleased and said, Let us go then. It was in the spring of 1920. Holy Mother was leaving Jairambati for Calcutta, so Shivaram came from Kamarpur to see her. He arrived at Jairambati around noon and informed the mother that he would stay there that day and return to Kamarpur the next day. After lunch, the mother told him to rest and go back to Kamarpur in the afternoon with some of the fruits to offer to Raghuveer, the family deity. Shivaram replied that he had done the worship for that day. He had even finished the evening worship and put the Lord to bed. Stunned, the mother said, What is this? If Raghuveer and Sitala are worshipped in this way during your lifetime, then imagine what will happen when your children take charge. Have you not heard how my father in law worshipped Raghuveer with such great respect and devotion? Shivaram replied, Aunt, it will be fine. It is only a matter of one day. Today I want to stay with you. After saying that, Shivaram went to take rest in the parlor with the monks. What time are we looking at here? Okay, 6. Oh my gosh, it's time to end here. All right, so let me stop the recording.